Good evening. This is the Torah on Parshas Vayikra, the first Parsha of the Sefer Vayikra. Now, this is one of the most technical of the five books of Moses, Kameshim. It starts out with dealing with the various korbanot and different types of sacrifices and when they needed, and also sin offerings, all kinds of things. It's eventually going to go on to the actual dedication of Mishkan the eighth day, and among other topics, uh, it's going to be dealing with the Parshas, various ways we have to be kedusha, be holy, since Hashem is, and it also deals with the Yom Kippur offerings. It's a whole service, and then goes on to various types of spiritual purity and impurity. And then finally, last two parshas, Bahar Bakusai, is talking about the Shemitah year, and Yovel year, Jubilee, and also deals with the boundaries of Eretz Israel, and finally deals with what the reward will be if we do keep Hashem's mitzvahs and what the punishment will be. Now, what I'd like to focus on after that summary is the first pasuk of Sefer Vayikra and Parshas Vayikra. It says Vayikra al Moshe the bear Noi Elelev Ma'oel Moed Lamor. God called to Moses, speaking to him from the Moed, in other words, the Mishkan. He said, what did he tell him to do? De'bel b'nei Yisrael, and he then starts with the first one. Speak to the b'nei Yisrael and tell them the following, and then goes on to different korbanot and what have you. Now the question is very interesting. The word Vayikra has a small aleph at the end, because in the Hebrew words, often the last letter can determine the meaning, and that's true in this case. Now, I'd like to address a few possible matters dealing with the letter small aleph. There are literally dozens of them. I'm going to be bringing one exposition that's from the Balaturim. It's also alluded to by Ramesha Shapiro Zipman Sadak Labraka. And I'm then going to conclude with another deeper explanation of what is going on, which ties into the events of Sefer Shmos. Now, if one looks at the Parsha, one of them has to do with Moshe Rabbeinu. Again, there's dozens of explanations. Now, one of them is the small aleph was a compromise between Hashem, God, and Moshe. There's a midrash that explains he wanted to write it without the final aleph. So then it would become Vayikra, which means, and Hashem happened upon Moshe. Moshe didn't want to be acknowledged as the one, that Hashem called him. Now the problem with that is Hashem wouldn't allow that, because that's how Balaam, the evil prophet, that's going to appear in Sefer Bamidbar, was described. And God insisted Moshe write Vayikra with the aleph. God spoke to call to him. And what Hashem did accept as a compromise, the letter aleph could be small. Now we learn a number of important principles from that. A number of concepts is, look, that what Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest of all prophets. The whole Bnei Israel were based on him. He was the Neshama, he was the Shorish Neshama, source Neshama, souls for all the people that were born in Bamidbar in the desert for 40 years, among many other things. And he was also setting up the whole system of the Mishkan and everything else, and bringing Hashem, providing a dwelling place for Hashem. But he felt that he was very small. He was an Anav, extremely modest. But God's going to say later when he's talking to Miriam and Aaron and Parsha Shlach, he's when he called them out for speaking what could be interpreted as Lashon Hara against Moshe. He said he's the humblest. Moshe wasn't there. He said he's the most modest of all men. Now, so Moshe realized that even though Hashem gave him great responsibility in prophecy, the source and the makor, Hebrew, of the whole system is Hashem. And he plays a very small role. And this has been explained because to truly learn Torah and get close to Hashem, one has to be extremely modest, an anav, humble, and Moshe fitted that exactly. And if you see it, you also see that with rabbis ever since. The greatest ones have been the most humble. Give another example. Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zikon Tzedek Bracha, who was one of the Gedolei Ador in America, and was the Posek Ador, one of the deciding halakhic decisions, plus an incredible teacher of the Talmud, Gemara. Yet he said, I individually are not of significance. The only thing that has value is my Torah. And he recognized that comes ultimately from Hashem. Yes, we have to work to get to Kedusha, but they're sent from Hashem. Now, this is a lesson we should take to heart in other places, not just in Torah, but we should all respect that whatever abilities Hashem gives us, we're supposed to use to the utmost, but we have to realize they come from Hashem. And our achievements were his representatives as shlichim. Now, that does not only apply in the world of Torah, but we have to look to be truly righteous, whether one is a political leader or in technology, whatever it is, that everything comes from Hashem. We're his servants, and that's something that should be particularly kept in mind. Through God's inspiration, all kinds of technological systems have been developed, like Iron Dome and other. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but many, plus the open miracles Hashem is giving for us in this current war with Iran and Hezbollah, that you should recognize, yes, scientists have come up with this system, that system, but it's only because they have divine inspiration. And the true one behind all this, and not the scientists and not the army, it's, even though they're doing magnificent work, it's all because Hashem wills it. And that's something we should keep in mind. So that's one explanation. Another explanation that I want to give of this Aleph is on a different level. If you look, and this is based on Shar Poskim, it says, why Moshe and the whole Jewish people, after they received the Torah, before the sin of the Egel Zahav, the golden calf, they were at the level of Adam and Chava before the Chet. They received the entire organuz on the first 6 days. We saw a spiritual light which gave us incredible abilities. And if they hadn't done the sin of the Egel Zahav, golden calf, we would have gone in immediately, and we would Moshe would have been Mashiach, or at least the leader. The first, second, and third temples would all have been rolled into one, and history would have been very different. Now, what does all that have to do with the little Aleph? Well, you have to look. The letters Aleph, Lamed, Pei, Sofit can have one, depending which values you have under it, can either mean 1,000 or it can mean one. They're the same letters, different vowels. Now, the Or Gnuz, the hidden light, that special spiritual light, which we got back after the sin of, after we may get us back to the level of Adam and Chava before the sin, eating the fruit. There was 1,000 halakim, parts to this divine light. Moshe merited to receive them because of the elevated level of the Jewish people, and the Jewish people, it was on the strength of the Jewish people that Hashem gave that to him. Now, if you look, it then says that when they committed the sin of the Egel Zahav, they only got one component that Moshe got, whatever Kedusha they got is through Moshe, and that also explains the famous Karen Or, the beam of light that came from Moshe's face. He had to cover it up, some kind of mask, so that they wouldn't be exposed to it. Now, why wasn't it? It was a special holy light. They had merited 1,000 times that, 1,000 portions of it, all of them. And that's why they were embarrassed and why he had to put on a mask, was they realized the other 1,000 and even that one could have been theirs if they hadn't committed the sin of the Egel Zahav. And to signify that, we had, if it was a large Aleph, it'll indicate the whole 1,000. So by making it a small Aleph, smaller, it showed how far we sank, how far we reduced, going from 1,000 to only one element. May we, in the coming days, as we're getting ready for Pesach, which is 2 weeks from tonight, may we all merit to get closer and closer to Hashem and get to the level where we have the redemption and truly merit that holy light. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.